If you can't make the Monsters game tonight, the Cleveland Charge are also home at Public Arena. Make sure you head over to Public Arena, check out the Cleveland Charge taking on the Memphis Hustle. I'll be there tonight, so if you see me, come say what's up. Cleveland Charge, Memphis Hustle, 7:30.
I'd like to see Mike wearing that outfit, riding a horse at the game. I think that needs to happen before the end of the season.
It's not going to happen. But
Should.
Maybe.
All right.
All right, Jason, you wrote an article this morning, and we had talked in the days since Todd Monken was hired. You have not been on the show since Todd Monken's been named the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. That although the search process may have been less than ideal, it's not Todd Monken's fault, and they may have ended up with a pretty darn good head coach in their own right. Do you want to explain what you wrote this morning and why you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I'm not going to say anything you guys probably haven't said 100 times all week. I haven't been able to watch many of the episodes, but really, I don't think Todd Monken's a bad coach. I'm not going to bash the hire. I think the way that we got there was totally insane.
Yeah.
But I've had people reach out and say they probably got the best football coach of the three finalists. Like right now, today, they probably got the best football coach.
Right.
So I'm not going to knock the hire. He's got a ton of experience. Is it a home run hire? No. Is it a sexy hire? Are they going to win the press conference with that? Probably not. But the Browns have won a lot of press conferences and lost a lot of games. So
I don't know that there was a home run hire.
Well, Shieldhouse would have been the sexy name.
Yeah, but But we don't know that's a whole.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But that would have been, and that's why, like, I was trying to reserve judgment on this whole thing. Like, I didn't knock him at all throughout this because I thought, no matter how goofy it looks, if they wind up with Nate Shieldhouse, then it's probably, they follow the process and they're going the young analytics route. The Andrew Berry, like that is an Andrew Berry guy, is Nate Shieldhouse. Grant Udinski, another name. Those are the guys. That's the trend in the NFL, although it is kind of interesting to me that we're seeing the McCarthys and the Monkens of this cycle and some older guys come back. So, we'll wait and see. I just think it certainly feels, I guess the biggest point for me is it feels like Jimmy is Jimmying again. And that's what I'm most concerned about because that never typically seems to end well. And I've told you guys in our group chat, the owner picks the coach every time. Every sport, every team, the owner picks the coach. And it's amusing to me that, like, the GMs sit up there at these introductory press conferences and they talk about what they love about the guy. It may be true, but it may be total crap. That because they may not have wanted that guy at all, but the owner said that's who we're hiring because that happens more often than you realize.
Right.
It always comes down to the owner. And when you look at, like, the search party or the recommendation, whatever, leads a few years ago to Sean McDermott, and they hired Hugh Jackson. And all the signs that indicated, like, Kevin Stefanski was on the radar in 2019, and that's when you had to split the organization. You had DePodesta over here, you had John Dorsey over here. The analytics search department headed for Kevin, and Jimmy sided with Dorsey and went the Freddie Kitchens route, and we know how that ended.
Yeah.
And now it seems yet again where we've got one side over here with Nate Shieldhouse, and then they pivoted and went the other way with Monk. Doesn't mean it's going to be a bad hire. I think it'll be fine. I think he'll do a fine job. I think it'll be fine. It's just you just don't know. You just get the feeling the Browns don't know what they're looking for, and that's. I was talking to an executive who has been in that hiring position before, and we talked about, like, I showed him, like, the clip of Pelissaro talking about the essays and the surveys, and I do think a little bit that got overblown, and I can't remember if we talked about this on the remote show Monday or not. And he said, you can't capture leadership within data. Like, data is a good thing. It's good to have data. There's nothing wrong with some of the stuff that they're doing, but it looks like they don't know what they're looking for because you can't really capture a guy's leadership traits within a survey or within a questionnaire.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll wait and see on it. I don't think it was a home run. I don't think it was a total bust. I don't think this is going to be another Freddie Kitchens situation where 3 games in we're looking at this going, oh my God, what have they done? I don't think that at all.
They hired a good football man.
Yeah.
I mean, and it does seem like, as time's gone by since the hiring, that maybe he didn't get a job for so long for the same reason Mike Zimmer didn't get a job for a long time, because maybe he's brutally honest. And that doesn't sit well with a lot of owners.
I love it.
As media, we love it. Like, this guy's going to be the opposite of Kevin Stefanski in press conferences.
But even and you're right, because I know people who have been fired before because they were the only honest person in the room.
Yeah.
And they told the truth. And when you don't laugh at the owner's jokes, and when you tend to be direct with them and tell them what you really think, a lot of times that gets you sent out elsewhere.
Yeah.
But in a healthy organization, that's exactly what you need.
100%. Yeah. Yes.
I think when you look at, I don't remember whether it was AB or it was Jimmy Haslam who said this when they came out and talked about him getting hired. One of them said something to the effect that they liked what type of coach he was in this life cycle of the Cleveland Browns organization. And I took that to mean that at a point in time where you got a lot of young, impressionable players and a lot of players that you're trying to mold and trying to build something with, you do need somebody that's going to be honest with you. You do need somebody that's going to give you some tough love and tell you what you need to hear and do some really roll their sleeves up and do some tough coaching. Mm-hmm. And I think him as an offensive guy, and that was their focus, getting offensive things together. His track record says that he's worked with a numerous amount of quarterbacks, a number of different systems. He's not married to one. But the one thing that he does have is he has a track record of showing that he could put points on the board, and his offenses have been explosive, whether that's at Georgia, whether that's with the Baltimore Ravens. And so I like – the more and more I look at it, the more and more the hire makes sense to me. Now, they could have – ultimately backed their way into it. They could have messed the process up and backed their way into a pretty good coach that could have been on their list first. But, sometimes, as we all say, sometimes you got to get lucky. We just projecting and trying to figure out and extrapolate to see if this guy is going to be great or not. Time will tell. You don't get wins and losses during the press conferences or what we think. So time will see what it is. But on paper,
the Browns botched the process so bad that I think the reaction from myself and certainly a lot of others was so negative when he first got hired because of how the Browns, what they put out there, how they handled it, it was so poor. And then when you sit back and just say, okay, listen, the guy, this is not Freddie Kitchens. This is a guy who is highly thought of around the league and just well respected. And so it doesn't mean he's going to be great.
Right.
And he's like like most Browns coaches, he's behind the eight ball to start with the roster on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah. But it's not a terrible hire, if nothing else.
I do think no team will say this. Obviously, they'd get sued. But I do think with a lot of these guys, they reach an age where they just get crossed off.
Yes,
if you haven't been, it's almost like if you're single by this age, what's wrong with you?
Yes.
Why have you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it gets that way to be with an NFL head with coaching. If you are reach your 50s,
and you've never been, it's hard to get off that back on the list.
Then they're going to look at you like, well, what's the matter with you? Why has no one else taken a chance?
I think that's why I wasn't taking Todd Monken seriously.
Let me ask you this question, Jason, because we were talking about it the other day. And I said one of the reasons I think, because I was kind of surprised by Jim Schwartz's reaction to it.
Yeah.
Because it was, for better or worse, he lost his mind when he was in there when he didn't get the job. I said I think, one, he was hurt because of it. And two, I think kind of to what you're saying is, I think that he had been waiting for another opportunity to get a head coaching spot, and he felt like this was his best chance. He knew
this was his
last
chance.
If he doesn't get this, he's not getting one.
This was his last chance.
The ship kind of sailed on, and he had to deal with that.
And that goes back to the process, Adam, that you were talking about. Like I don't. All of this will come out. That's why I wrote today. This will all come out in 3 or 4 years.
Right.
When although it seems to be leaking a little bit earlier with some of the Schwartz stuff.
Yeah.
But when all these guys are fired and everybody's swept out, we joke all the time about the stories that I have about how the interview process went. And I alluded to a little bit of it in today's stuff with the head coach who came back for the second straight interview 2 years in a row. They brought him back, but he didn't really go in to interview. He really went in to yell at them, why should I take your job after you didn't hire me last time? And then the people in the room who were doing the interviewing wound up arguing with each other in front. It's amazing. God. And then all the stories of Jimmy asking candidates, well, what do you think I should do? What should we do? What do you think the candidate's going to say? Of course, well, I think you should hire me. It's just insane.
Yeah.
And so here you go again with that process again. So if they really led, and I don't know, if they led Jim to believe that this was going to be his job, I can kind of understand the way that he reacted the way that he did. And maybe they have, because I know of head coaches or coaching candidates who felt like they were getting on a plane to come to a certain city that's awfully snowy and cold right now to do a press conference, and then at the last minute pivoted and they went another direction. So that very well may be. If Jim felt like this is my job and they led him to believe that, I understand why he felt that way. If they didn't, I think he's totally overreacting and acting like a child. You signed on to be the defensive coordinator of an NFL football team. That's your role.
Well, in the comments that people attributed to him, it said that he thought he had the job.
And now, again, is that his interpretation, or did they lead him to believe that? If they led him to believe that, I totally understand.
I don't agree that he's behaving like a child. I would be very angry if I were him.
If he's making assumptions that he was getting the job.
I mean, we'll
never know.
We'll never know for sure. I mean, maybe we will know, because there might be, I'm sure there are two versions. You ask Jim Schwartz something, you ask Jimmy Haslam something,
right.
They're going to give you two. Now, it's entirely possible he led them to believe that, or maybe Jimmy just thought like, hey, I'm just going to throw money at him anyway, so what's the difference if we don't hire him?
That's how they problem solve around here.
So.
If I'm Todd Monken, I don't want him as my DC now. Not after that. I don't want him.
Yeah.
It's
tough.
Given Jim's reputation, and I told you guys last week, he's got a reputation. He can be difficult to work with.
Yeah.
That's your reputation coming in, and now this is how it's going to start?
Yeah.
No.
Listen.
And Jim's good. Jim's really good.
Yeah.
He's really, really good at what he does. We'll get into it, I think, on the TV show. I think part of the reason they wanted to hold on to him so badly is because they built this defense to fit his scheme.
He's right. And
so why
I had Zach on my podcast this morning. That's what he said. All these players.
I mean, they took Mason Graham.
Yeah.
To fit Jim Schwartz's scheme.
And Jim is the best hire that the organization has made.
So then
the entire time they've been here.
So then why didn't you make him the head coach? There has to be a reason. Why you didn't just trust him to make him the head coach.
Yeah. And then if you weren't going to, why did you say he was definitely going to be here? You shouldn't have said that if you weren't going to give him the job.
And again, it's semantics. We're parsing words here.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything, we've talked about this before, I don't think there's anything wrong with telling a candidate, listen, we really love this guy. He's done a great job here.
Right.
We want you to take a look at him, talk to him. Just talk to him.
Yeah.
If you guys hit it off, if you think it'll work, great. And if not, it's your call. You have to have the power to build your own staff.
Yeah.
We'll live. It'll be all right. We'll be disappointed, but it'll be all right. But to push him, and from my understanding, they were really pushing Jim.
Yeah.
It's part of the reservation that Nate Shieldhouse had with the job was he didn't want to have his staff forced on him.
But again, why, if the Browns knew, why would they push when they didn't they know that he was going to be angry if he didn't get the job? And I believe, this is just speculation. There's no way to know this for sure.
Yeah.
I've said this a couple of times, but I haven't said it with you. I think Jim Schwartz is probably even more pissed because they hired a guy in his age bracket.
Yeah.
I think if they hired Nate Shieldhouse or Udinsky, in his mind he could say, you know what, I get it. I'm older. In the reality of it. I get it. They want to have a young, I understand. I may not agree with it, but I get it. But then he's thinking what? This guy's a good coordinator. So am I. They promoted another guy from another organization over me when I've done it here.
Yeah.
He's never been a head coach.
Yep.
And he's the same age as me, so what's up?
I think they wanted an offensive coach.
I hear you, but I'm just talking from his perspective.
I just think
that. I think in the end they wanted an offensive
I think
coach.
they were close. I think they were look here and here, but I think Todd Monken, they liked his plan for what they want the offense to be. And if you got 2 first-round draft picks and you're using those on offensive players, I just think that they felt more comfortable going with. Now, look, I told you before. I would have hired Jim Schwartz. I said I had him 60-40. However, I am of the thought process with Jason. If you want Todd Monken to be successful, you have to eliminate. It's one band, one sound. You can't have you can't have two.
Okay,
and if Todd goes to him and says, "Hey, look. Let me see what you're talking about. Listen, I know you was upset. I get it.
Yeah.
And they could work something out. That's fine. But for me, you can't have – we've seen this with a lot of different places, whether it's Buddy Ryan, whether it's other places where you got a defense and then it's the offense.
We've seen it here.
And it's been here.
You know what? You probably don't. I mean, listen, I think it's worth it for Todd Monken to maybe have a conversation with him, and if he feels good about it, maybe. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. But this DC hire is huge.
Sure.
If they hire somebody else because – they got to hire somebody that basically runs a defense the same way as Jim Schwartz, because you've got guys, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, they're going to be great no matter what. But you've got a lot of guys, and including what's his name, the linebacker they got to re-sign,
Devin Bush.
Devin Bush, thank you.
Who thrived in Jim Schwartz's
in this system. Malik Collins, this system. You mentioned Mason Graham. You can't change it around too much with the personnel you have.
Well, you can, but ideally you don't.
Well, you shouldn't.
Yeah,
probably.
ideally.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a name for you guys for the TV show
Yeah.
that probably hasn't come up yet that I think would be a good fit here as the DC. I
Okay.
don't know what it's not a Baltimore guy. I don't know what the relationship is, if any, between Monken and this person, but and it's a name that you'll probably go, what? But I think it would fit exactly what you're saying, that they could keep the schemes and style that they play now.
Okay.